All right. Page 61. We were on chapter 3, part 5. The mare flattened her ears against her skull and snorted. Throwing up earth with her hooves, she did not want to go. Geralt didn't calm her with the sign. He jumped from the saddle and threw the reins over the horse's head. He no longer had his old sword in its lizard skin sheath on his back. Its place was filled with a shining, beautiful weapon with a cruciform and slender, well-weighted hilt, ending in a spherical pommel made of white metal. This time, the gate didn't open for him. It was already open, just as he had left it. He heard singing. He didn't understand the words. He couldn't even identify the language. He didn't need to. The Witcher felt and understood the very nature, the essence of this quiet, piercing song which flowed through the veins in a wave of nauseous, overpowering menace. The singing broke off abruptly, and then he saw her. She was clinging to the back of the dolphin in the dried-up fountain, embracing the moss-overgrown stone with her tiny hands, so pale they seemed transparent. Beneath her storm of tangled black hair shone huge, wide-open eyes the color of anthracite. Geralt slowly drew closer, his step soft and springy, tracing a semicircle from the wall and blue rosebush. The creature, glued to the dolphin's back, followed him with her eyes, turning her petite face with an expression of longing and full of charm. He could still hear her song, even though her thin, pale lips were held tight, and not the slightest sound emerged from them. The Witcher halted at a distance of 10 paces, his sword, slowly drawn from its black enameled sheath, glistened and glowed above his head. "It's silver," he said. "This blade is silver." The pale little face did not flinch. The anthracite eyes did not change expression. "You're so like a Rusalka," the Witcher continued calmly, that you could deceive anyone. All the more as you're a rare bird, black-haired one. But horses are never mistaken. They recognize creatures like you, instinctively and perfectly. What are you? I think you're a Mula, or an Alpor. An ordinary vampire couldn't come out in the sun." The corners of the pale lips quivered and turned up a little. "Nivellen attracted you with that shape of his, didn't he? You evoked his dreams. I can guess what sort of dreams they were, and I pity him." The creature didn't move. "You like birds," continued the Witcher, "but that doesn't stop you from biting the necks of people of both sexes, does it? You and Nivellen, indeed. Beautiful couple you'd make, a monster and a vampire, rulers of a forest castle. You'd dominate the whole area in a flash. You, eternally thirsty for blood, and he, your guardian, a murderer at your service, a blind tool. But first, he had to become a true monster, not a human being in a monster's mask. Excuse me. The huge black eyes narrowed. "Where is he, black-haired one? You were singing, so you've drunk some blood. You've taken the ultimate measure, which means you haven't managed to enslave his mind. Am I right?" The black-tressed head nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, and the corners of the mouth turned up even more. The tiny little face took on an eerie expression. "No doubt you consider yourself the lady of this manor now." A nod, this time clearer. "Are you a Mula?" A slow shake of the head. The hiss which reverberated through his bones could only have come from the pale, ghastly, smiling lips, although the Witcher didn't see them move. "Alpor?" Denial. The Witcher backed away and clasped the hilt of his sword tighter. "That means you're..." The corners of the lips started to turn up higher and higher. The lips flew open. Abruxa, the Witcher shouted, throwing himself towards the fountain. From behind the pale lips glistened white, spiky fangs. The vampire jumped up, arched her back like a leopard, and screamed. The wave of sound hit the Witcher like a battering ram, depriving him of breath, crushing his ribs, piercing his ears and brain with thorns of pain. Flying backwards, he just managed to cross his wrists in the sign of heliotrope. The spell cushioned some of the impact with the wall, but even so, the world grew dark, and the remainder of his breath burst from his lungs in a groan. On the dolphin's back, in the stone circle of the dried-up fountain, where a dainty girl in a white dress had sat just a moment ago, an enormous black bat flattened its glossy body, opening its long, narrow jaws wide, revealing rows of needle-like white teeth. The membranous wings spread and flapped silently, and the creature charged at the Witcher like an arrow fired from a crossbow. Geralt, with the metallic taste of blood in his mouth, shouted a spell and threw his hand, finger spread in the sign of Kuin, out in front of him. The bat, hissing, turned abruptly, then chuckled, and veered up into the air before diving down vertically, straight at the nape of the Witcher's neck. Geralt jumped aside, slashed, and missed. The bat, smoothly, gracefully, drew in a wing, circled around him, and attacked anew, opening its eyeless, toothed snout wide. Geralt waited, sword held with both hands, always pointed in the creature's direction. At the last moment, he jumped, not to the side, but forward, dealing a swinging cut which made the air howl. He missed. It was so unexpected that he lost his rhythm and dodged a fraction of a second too late. He felt the beast's talons tear his cheek, and a damp, velvety wing slapped against his neck. He curled up on the spot, transferred the weight of his body to his right leg, and slashed backwards sharply, missing the amazingly agile creature again. The bat beat its wings, soared up, and glided towards the fountain. As the crooked claws scraped against the stone casing, the monstrous, slobbering snout was already blurring, morphing, disappearing. Although the pale little lips which were taking its place couldn't quite hide the murderous fangs. The Bruxa howled piercingly, modulating her voice into a macabre tune, glared at the Witcher with eyes full of hatred, and screamed again. The sound wave was so powerful it broke through the sign. Black and red circles spun in Geralt's eyes. His temples and the crown of his head throbbed. Through the pain drilling in his ears, he began to hear voices wailing, moaning, the sound of flute and oboe, the rustle of a gale. The skin on his face grew numb and cold. He fell to one knee and shook his head. The black bat floated towards him silently, opening its toothy jaws. Geralt, still stunned by the scream, reacted instinctively. He jumped up and, in a flash, matching the tempo of his movements to the speed of the monster's flight, took 3 steps forward, dodged, turned a semicircle, and then, quick as a thought, delivered a 2-handed blow. The blade met with no resistance. Almost no resistance. He heard a scream, but this time it was the scream of pain, caused by the touch of silver. The wailing Bruxa was morphing on the dolphin's back. On her white dress, slightly above her left breast, a red stain was visible, beneath a slash no longer than a little finger. The Witcher ground his teeth. The cut, which should have sundered the beast in two, had been nothing but a scratch. "Shout, vampire," he growled, wiping the blood from his cheek. "Scream your guts out, lose your strength, and then I'll slash your pretty little head off. You will be the first to grow weak, sorcerer. I will kill you." The Brux's lips did not move, but the Witcher heard the words clearly. They resounded in his mind, echoing and reverberating as if underwater. "We shall see," he muttered through his teeth as he walked, bent over in the direction of the fountain. "I will kill you. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. We shall see." "Verena!" Nivellen, his head hanging low and both hands clinging to the doorframe, stumbled from the mansion. He staggered towards the fountain, waving his paws unsteadily. Blood stained the cuff of his tunic. "Verena!" he roared again. The Bruxa jerked her head in his direction. Geralt, raising his sword to strike, jumped towards her, but the vampire's reaction was much faster. A sharp scream and another sound wave knocked the Witcher from his feet. He tumbled onto his back and scraped against the gravel of the path. The Bruxa arched and tensed to jump, her fangs flashing like daggers. Nivellen, spreading his paws like a bear, tried to grab her, but she screamed straight into his face, throwing him back against the wooden scaffolding under the wall, which broke with a sharp crash and buried him beneath a stack of timber. Geralt was already on his feet, running, tracing a semicircle around the courtyard, trying to draw the Bruxa's attention away from Nivellen. The vampire, fluttering her white dress, scurried straight at him, light as a butterfly, barely touching the ground. She was no longer screaming, no longer trying to morph. The Witcher knew she was tired, and that she was still lethal. Behind Geralt's back, Nivellen was clattering under the scaffolding, roaring. Geralt leapt to the left, executing a short moulinet with his sword. Moulinet? I don't know, I've never seen that word. With his sword to confuse the Bruxa gliding towards him, white and black, wind-blown, terrible. He'd underestimated her. She screamed. He didn't make the sign in time, flew backwards until he thumped against a wall. The pain in his spine shot all the way to the tips of his fingers, paralyzed his shoulders, cut him down at the legs. He fell to his knees. The Bruxa wailing, melodiously, like melody, but Ioussly. Yeah, I don't know how to say that one. Jumped towards him. "Verena!" roared Nivellen. She turned, and Nivellen forced the sharp broken end of a 3-meter-long pole between her breasts. She didn't shout. She only sighed. The Witcher shook, hearing this sigh. They stood there. Nivellen, on widespread legs, was wielding the pole in both hands, one end firmly secured under his arm. The Bruxa, like a white butterfly in a pin, hung on the other end of the stake, clutching it with both hands. The vampire exhaled excruciatingly and suddenly pressed herself hard against the stake. Geralt watched a red stain bloom from her back, on the white dress through which the broken tip emerged in a geyser of blood. Hideous, almost obscene. Nivellen screamed, took one step back, then another, retreating from her. But he didn't let go of the pole, and dragged the Bruxa behind him. One more step, and he leaned back against the mansion. The end of the pole scraped against the wall. Slowly, as if a caress, the Bruxa moved her tiny hands along the stake, stretched her arms out to their full length, grasped the pole hard, and pulled on it again. Over a meter of bloodied wood already protruded from her back. Her eyes were wide open, her head flung back. Her sighs became more frequent and rhythmic, turning into a ruckling wheeze. Geralt stood but, fascinated by the scene, still couldn't make himself act. He heard words resounding dully within his skull, as if echoing around a cold, damp dungeon. Mine, or nobody's. I love you. Love you. Another terrible, vibrating sigh, choking in blood. The Bruxa moved further along the pole and stretched out her arms. Nivellen roared desperately and, without letting go of the stake, tried to push the vampire as far from himself as possible. But in vain. She pulled herself closer and grabbed him by the head. He wailed horrifically and tossed his hairy head. The Bruxa moved along the pole again and tilted her head towards Nivellen's throat. The fangs flashed a blinding white. Geralt jumped. Every move he made, every step, was part of his nature. Hard-learnt, automatic, and lethally sure. 3 quick steps, and the third, like 100 steps before, finished on the left leg with a strong, firm stamp. A twist of his torso and a sharp, forceful cut. He saw her eyes. Nothing could change now. He heard the voice. Nothing. He yelled to drown out the words which she was repeating. Nothing could change. He cut. He struck decisively, like hundreds of times before, with the center of the blade, and immediately, following the rhythm of the movement, took a 4th step and half a turn. The blade, freed by the half turn, floated after him, shining, drawing a fan of red droplets in its wake. The streaming raven black hair floated in the air. Floated. 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 The head fell onto the gravel. There are fewer and fewer monsters, and I, what am I? Who's shouting? The birds? The woman in a sheepskin jacket and blue dress? The roses from Nazir? How quiet. How empty. What emptiness within me. Nivellen, curled up in a bundle, sheltering his head in his arms and shaking with twitches and shivers, was lying in the nettles by the manor wall. Get up, said the Witcher. The young, handsome, well-built man with a pale complexion, lying by the wall, raised his head and looked around. His eyes were vague. He rubbed them with his knuckles. He looked at his hands, felt his face. He moaned quietly and, putting his fingers in his mouth, ran it along his gums for a long time. He grasped his face again and moaned as he touched the 4 bloody, swollen streaks on his cheek. He burst out sobbing, then laughed. Geralt, how come? How did this? Geralt! Get up, Nivellen. Get up and come along. I've got some medicine in my saddlebags. We both need it. I've no longer got... I haven't. Have I? Geralt, why? The Witcher helped him get up, trying not to look at the tiny hands, so pale as to be transparent, clenched around the pole, stuck between the small breasts which were now plastered with a wet red fabric. Nivellen moaned again. Verena. Don't look. Let's go. They crossed the courtyard, holding each other up, and passed the blue rosebush. Nivellen kept touching his face with his free hand. Incredible, Geralt. After so many years, how is it possible? There's a grain of truth in every fairy tale, said the Witcher, quietly. Love and blood. They both possess a mighty power. Wizards and learned men have been racking their brains over this for years. But they haven't arrived at anything except that... The what, Geralt? It has to be true love. The Voice of Reason 3. I'm Falwick, Count of Moen, and this knight is... Tiles? I'm gonna go ahead and say Tiles. From Dorndal. Geralt bowed, curious. Cursorily. Cursor, I-L-Y. What is with... Dude, I'm learning a lot of new words here. Cursorily, I guess? I don't know, you're gonna have to let me know that one, chat. Looking at the knights. Both wore armor in crimson cloaks with the emblem of the white rose on their left shoulder. He was somewhat surprised, as, so far as he knew, there was no commandery of that order in the neighborhood. Neneki, to all appearances smiling light-heartedly and at ease, noticed his surprise. These nobly born gentlemen, she said casually, setting herself more comfortably in her throne-like armchair, are in the service of Duke Hereward, who governs these lands most mercifully. Prince. What did I say this guy's name is? Tiles, I think is what I was going for. Tailles. Holy names, dude. I thought my names were bad. Tiles, the younger of the knights, corrected her emphatically, fixing his hostile pale blue eyes on the priestess. Prince Hereward. Let's not waste time with the details and titles, Neneki smiled, mockingly. In my day, only those with royal blood were addressed as princes, but now, it seems, titles don't mean so much. Let's get back to our introductions, and why the Knights of the White Rose are visiting my humble temple. You know, Geralt, that the chapter is requesting investitures for the order from Hereward, which is a number of locales. Oh wait, no, I skipped a line. which is why so many Knights of the Rose have entered his service, and a number of locales, like Tiles here, have taken vows and assumed the red cloak which becomes him so well. My honor, the Witcher bowed once more, just as cursorily as before. I doubt it, the priestess remarked coldly. They haven't come here to honor you. Quite the opposite. They've arrived demanding that you leave as soon as possible. In short, they're here to chase you out. You consider that an honor? I don't. I consider it an insult. The noble knights have troubled themselves for no reason, shrugged Geralt. I don't intend to settle here. I'm leaving of my own accord, without any additional incentives, and soon, at that. Immediately, growled Tiles. With not a moment's delay, the prince's orders. In this temple, I give the orders, interrupted Neneki in a cold, authoritative voice. I usually try to ensure my orders don't conflict too much with Hereward's politics, as far as those politics are logical and understandable. In this case, they are irrational, so I won't treat them any more seriously than they deserve. Geralt, Witcher of Rivia, is my guest. His stay is a pleasure to me, so he will stay in my temple for as long as he wishes. You have the audacity to contradict the prince, woman? Tiles shouted, then threw his cloak back over his shoulder to reveal his grooved, brass-edged breastplate in all its splendor. You dare to question our ruler's authority? Quiet! Neneki snapped and narrowed her eyes. Lower your voice. Have a care who you speak to like that. I know who I'm talking to. The knight advanced a step. Falwick, the older knight, grabbed him firmly by the elbow and squeezed until the armor plate gauntlet grated. Tiles yanked furiously. And my words express the prince's will, the lord of this estate. We have got soldiers in the yard, woman. Neneki reached into the purse at her belt and took out a small porcelain jar. I really don't know, she said calmly. What will happen if I smash this container at your feet, Tiles? Maybe your lungs will burst. Maybe you'll grow fur. Or maybe both. Who knows? Only merciful Melitele. Sorry, Mira is causing trouble. Don't dare threaten me with your spells, priestess. Our soldiers... If any one of your soldiers touches one of Melitele's priestesses, they will hang before dusk from the acacias along the road to town, and they will know that very well. As do you, Tiles. So stop acting like a fool. I delivered you, you shitty brats, and I pity your mother. But don't tempt fate, and don't force me to teach you manners. All right, the Witcher butted in, growing bored. It looks as though I'm becoming the cause of a serious conflict, and I don't see why I should. Sir Falwick, you look more level-headed than your companion, who, I see, is beside himself with youthful enthusiasm. Listen, Falwick, I assure you that I will leave in a few days. I also assure you that I have no intention to work here, to undertake any commissions or orders. I'm not here as a witcher, but on personal business. Count Falwick met his eyes, and Geralt realized his mistake. There was pure, unwavering hatred in the White Rose Knight's eyes. The Witcher was sure that it was not Duke Hereward who was chasing him out, but Falwick and his like. The knight turned to Neneki, bowed with respect, and began to speak. He spoke calmly and politely. He spoke logically, but Geralt knew Falwick was lying through his teeth. Venerable Neneki, I ask your forgiveness, but Prince Hereward will not tolerate the presence of this witcher on his lands. It is of no importance if he is hunting monsters or claims to be here on personal business. The prince knows that witchers do not undertake personal business, but they do attract trouble like a magnet filings? I don't know what that one means. The wizards are rebelling and writing petitions. The druids are threatening. I don't see why Geralt should bear the consequences of the unruliness of local wizards and druids, interrupt the priestess. Since when Has Hereward been interested in either's opinion? Enough of this discussion. Falwick stiffened. Have I not made myself sufficiently clear, Venerable Neneki? I will make it so clear as can't be clearer. Neither the prince nor the chapter of the order will tolerate the presence of this witcher, Geralt, the butcher of Blaviken, in Elander for one more day. This isn't Elander. The priestess sprang from her chair. This is the temple of Melitele, and I, Neneki, the high priestess of Melitele, will not tolerate your presence on temple grounds a minute longer, sirs. Sir Falwick, the witcher said quietly, listen to the voice of reason. I don't want any trouble, nor do I believe that you particularly care for it. I'll leave this neighborhood within 3 days. No, Neneki, don't say anything. Please. It's time for me to be on my way. 3 days. I don't ask for more. And you're right not to ask. The priestess spoke before Falwick could react. Did you hear, boys? The Witcher will remain here for 3 days because that's his fancy. And I, priestess of Great Melitele, will, for those 3 days, be his host. For that is my fancy. Tell that to Hereward. No, not Hereward. Tell that to his wife, the noble Ormelia, adding that if she wants to continue receiving an uninterrupted supply of aphrodisiacs from my pharmacy, she'd better calm her duke down. Let her curb his humors and whims, which look ever more like symptoms of idiocy. Enough! Tiles shouted, so shrilly his voice broke into falsetto. I don't intend to stand by and listen as some charlatan insults my lord and his wife. I will not let such an insult pass unnoticed. It is the Order of the White Rose which will rule here. Now, it's the end of your nests of darkness and superstitions. And I, a knight of the White Rose... Shut up, you brat, interrupted Geralt, smiling nastily. Halt your uncontrolled little tongue. You speak to a lady who deserves respect, especially from a knight of the White Rose. Admittedly, to become one, it's enough. Lately, to pay 1,000 Novigrad crowns into the chapter's treasury, so the order's full of sons of moneylenders and tailors. But surely some manners have survived? But maybe I'm mistaken? Tiles grew pale and reached to his side. Sir Falwick, said Geralt, not ceasing to smile. If he draws his sword, I'll take it from him and beat the snotty-nosed little brat's arse with the flat of his blade, and then I'll batter the door down with him. Tiles, his hands shaking, pulled an iron gauntlet from his belt and, with a crash, threw it to the ground at the Witcher's feet. I'll wash away the insult to the Order with your blood, mutant, he yelled. On beaten ground. Go into the yard. You've dropped something, son, Neneki said calmly. So pick it up. We don't leave rubbish here. This is a temple. Falwick, take that fool from here, or this will end in grief. You know what you're to tell Hereward. And I'll write a personal letter to him. You don't look like trustworthy messengers to me. Get out of here. You can find your way, I hope. Falwick, restraining the enraged Tiles with an iron grip, bowed, his armor clattering. Then he looked the Witcher in the eyes. The Witcher didn't smile. Falwick threw his crimson cloak over his shoulders. This wasn't our last visit, Venerable Neneki, he said. We'll be back. That's just what I'm afraid of, replied the priestess coldly. The displeasure's mine. A sip. The Lesser Evil, Part 1. As usual, cats and children noticed him first. A striped tomcat, sleeping on a sun-warmed stack of wood, shuddered, raised his round head, pulled back his ears, hissed, and bolted off into the nettles. 3-year-old Dragomir, fisherman Trigla's son, who was sitting on the hut's threshold, doing his best to make dirtier an already dirty shirt, started to scream as he fixed his tearful eyes on the passing rider. The Witcher rode slowly. Without trying to overtake the hay cart obstructing the road, a laden donkey trotted behind him, stretching its neck and constantly pulling the cord tied to the Witcher's pommel tight. In addition to the usual bags, the long-eared animal was lugging lugging a large shape, wrapped in a saddlecloth on its back. The gray-white flanks of the ass were covered with black streaks of dried blood. The cart finally turned down a side street leading to a granary and harbor from which a sea breeze blew, carrying the stink of tar and ox's urine. Geralt picked up his pace. He didn't react to the muffled cry of the woman selling vegetables who was staring at the bony, taloned paw sticking out beneath the horse blanket, bobbing up and down in time with the donkey's trot. He didn't look around at the crowd gathering behind him and ripening with excitement. There were, as usual, many carts in front of the alderman's house. Geralt jumped from the saddle, adjusted the sword on his back, and threw the reins over the wooden barrier. The crowd following him formed a semicircle around the donkey. Even outside, the alderman's shouts were audible. "It's forbidden, I tell you! Forbidden! God damn it, can't you understand what I say, you scoundrel?" Geralt entered. In front of the alderman, small, podgy, and red with rage, stood a villager holding a struggling goose by the neck. "What? By all the gods! Is that you, Geralt? Do my eyes deceive me?" And turning to the peasant again, "Take it away! You boor! Are you deaf?" "They said," mumbled the villager, squinting at the goose, that a wee something must be given to his lordship. Otherwise—" "Who said?" yelled the alderman. "Who? That I supposedly take bribes? I won't allow it. I say, away with you!" "Greetings, Geralt." "Greetings," called Amain. The alderman squeezed the Witcher's hand, slapped him on the shoulder. "You haven't been here for a good 2 years, Geralt, eh? You can never stay in one place for long, can you? Where are you coming from?" "Ah, dog's arse. What's the difference where? Hey, somebody bring us some beer." "Sit down, Geralt. Sit down. It's mayhem here, because we've the market tomorrow. How are things with you? Tell me." "Later. Come outside first." The crowd outside had grown twofold, but the empty space around the donkey hadn't grown any smaller. Geralt threw the horse blanket aside. The crowd gasped and pulled back. Caldemon's mouth fell open. "By all the gods, Geralt, what is it?" "A kikimora. Is there any reward for it?" Caldeman shifted from foot to foot, looking at the spidery shape, with its dry black skin, that glassy eye with its vertical pupil, the needle-like fangs, and the bloody jaws. "Where? From where?" "On the dike, not some 4 miles from town. On the swamps. Caldeman, people must have disappeared there. Children." "Well, yes, true enough, but nobody... Who could have guessed?" "Hey, folks, go home. Get back to work. This isn't a show. Cover it up, Geralt. Flies are gathering." Back inside, the alderman grabbed a large jug of beer, without a word, and drank it to the last drop in one draught. He sighed deeply and sniffed. "There's no reward," he said gloomily. "No one suspected that there was something like that lurking in the salt marshes. It's true that several people have disappeared in those parts, but hardly anyone loitered on that dike. Why were you there? Why weren't you taking the main road?" "It's hard for me to make a living on the main roads," called him in. "I forgot." The alderman suppressed a belch, puffing out his cheeks. "And this used to be such a peaceful neighborhood. Even imps only rarely pissed in the women's milk. And here, right next to us, some sort of Spectre. It's only fitting that I thank you, because as for paying you, I can't. I haven't the funds. That's a shame. I could do with a small sum to get through the winter." The Witcher took a sip from his jug, wiped away the froth. "I'm making my way to Isbaden, but I don't know if I'll get there before the snows block the way. I might get stuck in one of the little towns on the Lutonsky Road." "Do you plan to stay long in Blaviken?" "No. I've no time to waste. Winter's coming. Where are you going to stay? With me, perhaps? There's an empty room in the attic. Why get fleeced by the innkeepers, those thieves? We'll have a chat. You could tell me what's happening in the big wide world. Willingly. But what will Lebuche have to say about it? It was quite obvious last time that she's not very keen on me. Women don't have a say in my house. But, just between us, don't do what you did during supper last time in front of her again. You mean when I threw my fork at that rat? No, I mean when you hit it. Even in the dark. I thought it would be amusing. It was. But don't do it in front of Lebuche. And again, and listen, this... What's it called? Kikamora. Do you need it for anything? What would I want it for? You can have them throw it in the cesspool if there's no reward for it. That's not a bad idea. Hey, Karelka, Borg, Carry Pebble. Any of you there? A town guard entered with a halberd on his shoulder, the blade catching the doorframe with a crash. Carry Pebble, said Calderman. Get somebody to help you and take the donkey with that muck wrapped up in the horse blanket, lead it past the pigsties, and chuck the Kikamora in the cesspool. Understood? At your command, but... Alderman, sir, what? Maybe before we drown that hideous thing, well? We could show it to Master Irion. I'm gonna go with Irion. It might be useful to him. Haldeman slapped his forehead with his open palm. You're not stupid, Carry Pebble. Listen, Geralt. Maybe our local wizard will spare you something for that carcass. The fishermen will bring him the oddest of fish, octopodes, clabiters, or herons. Many have made some money on them. Come on, let's go to the tower. You've got yourselves a wizard. Is he here for good, or only passing? For good. Master Irion. He's been living in Blaviken for a year. A powerful magus, Geralt. You'll see that from his very appearance. I doubt whether a powerful magus will pay for a Kikamora, Geralt grimaced. As far as I know, it's not needed for any elixirs. Your Irion will only insult me, no doubt. We witchers and wizards don't love each other. I've never heard of Master Irion insulting anyone. I can't swear that he'll pay you, but there's no harm in trying. There might be more Kikamoras like that in the marshes, and what then? Let the wizard look at the monster, cast some sort of spell on the marshlands or something, just in case. The Witcher thought for a moment. Very well, Calderman. What the heck, we'll risk a meeting with Master Irion. Shall we go? We're off. Gary Pebble, chase the kids away, and bring the floppy ears. Where's my hat? Part 2. The tower, built from smoothly hewn blocks of granite and crowned by tooth-like battlements, was impressive, dominating the broken tiles of homesteads and dipping roof-thatched cottages. He's renovated, I see. Or, no, wrong voice. He's renovated it, I see, remarked Geralt. With spells, or did he have you working at it? Spells, chiefly. What's he like? This Orion. Decent. He helps people. But he's a recluse. Doesn't say much. He rarely leaves the tower. On the door, which was adorned with a rosace, R-O-S-A-C-E, new word, you'll have to let me know, chat. Inlaid with pale wood, hung a huge knocker in the shape of a flat, bulging-eyed fish head, holding a brass ring in its toothed jaws. Calderman, obviously well-versed with the workings of its mechanics, approached, cleared his throat, and recited. Alderman Calderman greets you with a case for Master Irion. With him greets you Witcher Geralt, with respect to the same case. For a long moment nothing happened. And then finally, the fish head moved its toothed mandibles and belched a cloud of steam. Master Irion is not receiving. Leave, my good people. Calderman waddled on the spot and looked at Geralt. The Witcher shrugged. Carry Pebble picked his nose. with serious concentration. Master Irian is not receiving, the knocker repeated metallically. Go, my good. I'm not a good person. Geralt broke in loudly. I'm a witcher. That thing on the donkey is a Kikamora, and I killed it not far from town. It is the duty of every resident wizard to look after the safety of the neighborhood. Master Irian does not have to honor me with conversation, does not have to receive me, if that is his will. But let him examine the Kikamora and draw his own conclusions. Carry Pebble. Unstrap the Kikamora. Throw it down by the door. Geralt, the alderman said quietly, you're gonna leave? But I'm gonna have to... Let's go, called him in. Carry Pebble. Take that finger out of your nose, and do as I said. One moment, the knocker said in an entirely different tone. Geralt, is that really you? The Witcher swore quietly. I'm losing patience. Yes, it's really me. So what? Come up to the door, said the knocker, puffing out a small cloud of steam. Alone. I'll let you in. What about the Kikamora? To hell with it. I want to talk to you, Geralt. Just you. Forgive me, Alderman. What's it to me, Master Irian? Alderman waved the matter aside. Take care, Geralt. We'll see each other later. Carry Pebble. Into the cesspool with the monster. As you command. The Witcher approached the inlaid door, which opened a little bit, just enough for him to squeeze through, and then slammed shut, leaving him in complete darkness. Hey, he shouted, not hiding his anger. Just a moment, answered a strangely familiar voice. The feeling was so unexpected that the Witcher staggered and stretched out his hand, looking for support. He didn't find any. The orchard was blossoming with white and pink, and smelled of rain. The sky was split by the many-colored arc of a rainbow which bound the crowns of the trees to the distant blue chain of mountains. The house, nestled in the orchard, tiny and modest, was drowning in hollyhocks. Geralt looked down and discovered that he was up to his knees in time. Well, come on, Geralt, said the voice. I'm in front of the house. He entered the orchard. Walking through the trees, he noticed a movement to his left and looked around. A fair-haired girl, entirely naked, was walking along a row of shrubs carrying a basket full of apples. The Witcher solemnly promised himself that nothing would surprise him any more. At last! Greetings, Witcher. Stregobor! Geralt was surprised. During his life, the Witcher had met thieves who looked like town councilors, counselors who looked like beggars, harlots who looked like princesses, princesses who looked like calving cows, and kings who looked like thieves. But Stregobor always looked as, according to every rule and notion, a wizard should look. He was tall, thin, and stooping, with enormous bushy gray eyebrows and a long, crooked nose. To top it off, he wore a black, trailing robe with improbably wide sleeves, and wielded a long staff capped with a crystal knob. None of the wizards Geralt knew looked like Stregobor. Most surprising of all was that Stregobor was, indeed, a wizard. They sat in wicker chairs at the white marble-topped table on a porch surrounded by hollyhocks. The naked blonde with the apple basket approached, smiled, turned and, swaying her hips, returned to the orchard. Is that an illusion, too? Asked Geralt, watching the sway. It is, like everything here. But it is, my friend, a first-class illusion. The flowers smell, you can eat the apples, the bee can sting you, and she, the wizard indicated the blonde, you can, maybe later. Quite right. What are you doing here, Geralt? Are you still toiling away, killing the last representatives of dying species for money? How much did you get for the Kikamora? Nothing, I guess, or you wouldn't have come here. And to think that there are people who don't believe in destiny. Unless you knew about me. Did you? No, I didn't. It's the last place I could have expected you. If my memory serves me correctly, you used to live in a similar tower in Kovir. A great deal has changed since then, such as your name. Apparently, you're Master Irian now. That's the name of the man who created this tower. He died about 200 years ago, and I thought it right to honor him in some way since I occupied his abode. I'm living here. Most of the inhabitants live off the sea, and as you know, my specialty, apart from illusions, is weather. Sometimes I'll calm a storm, sometimes I'll conjure one up, sometimes drive schools of whiting and cod closer to the shores with the westerly wind. I can survive. That is, he added, miserably. I could. How come I could? Why the change of name? Destiny has many faces. Mine is beautiful on the outside and hideous on the inside. She has stretched her bloody talons towards me. You've not changed a bit, Stregobor, Geralt grimaced. You're talking nonsense while making wise and meaningful faces. Can't you speak normally? I can, sighed the wizard. I can, if that makes you happy. I made it all the way here, hiding and running from a monstrous being that wants to murder me. My escape proved in vain. It found me. In all probability, it's going to try and kill me tomorrow, or at the latest the day after. Ah, said the Witcher, dispassionately. Now I understand. Why facing death doesn't impress you much, does it? Stregobor, said Geralt, that's the way of the world. One sees all sorts of things when one travels. Two peasants kill each other over a field which the following day will be trampled flat by two counts and their retinues trying to kill each other off. Men hang from trees at the roadside. Brigands slash merchants' throats. At every step in town, you trip over corpses in the gutters. In palaces, they stab each other with daggers. And somebody falls under the table at a banquet every minute, blue from poisoning. I'm used to it. So why should a death threat impress me? And one directed at you, at that. One directed at me at that, Stregobor repeated with a sneer. And I considered you a friend. Counted on your help? Our last meeting, said Geralt, was in the court of King Edie of Kovir. I'd come to be paid for killing the Amphisbona? Amphisbona? Yeah, good luck. Which had been terrorizing the neighborhood. You and your compatriot Zavist vied with each other to call me a charlatan, and thoughtless murdering machine, and a scavenger. Consequently, not only didn't Idi pay me a penny, he gave me 12 hours to leave Kovir, and since this hourglass was broken, I barely made it. And now you say you're counting on my help. You say a monster's after you. What are you afraid of, Stregobor? If it catches up with you, tell it you like monsters, that you protect them, and make sure no Witcher scavenger ever troubles their peace. Indeed, if the monster disembowels and devours you, it'll prove terribly ungrateful. The wizard turned his head away silently. Geralt laughed. Don't get all puffed up like a frog magician. Tell me what's threatening you. We'll see what can be done. Have you heard of the curse of the Black Sun? But of course. Except that it was called the Mania of Mad Eltibald after the wizard who started the lark and caused dozens of girls from good, even noble families to be murdered or imprisoned in towers. They were supposed to have been possessed by demons, cursed, contaminated by the Black Sun, because that's what, in your pompous jargon, you called the most ordinary eclipse in the world. Eltibald wasn't mad at all. He deciphered the writing on Donk Menhirs, on tombstones in the Wosgore necropolises, and examined the legends and traditions of Weretots. All of them spoke of the eclipse in no uncertain terms. The Black Sun was to announce the imminent return of Lilith, still honored in the East under the name of Naya, and the extermination of the human race. Lilith's path was to be prepared by 60 women wearing gold crowns who would fill the river valleys with blood. Nonsense, said the Witcher. And what's more, it doesn't rhyme. All decent predictions rhyme. Everyone knows what Eltibald and the Council of Wizards had in mind at the time. You took advantage of a madman's ravings to strengthen your own authority, to break up alliances, ruin marriage allegiances, stir up dynasties, in a word, to tangle the strings of crowned puppets even more. And here you are lecturing me about predictions, which any old storyteller at the marketplace would be ashamed of. You can have your reservations about Eltibald's theories, about how the predictions were interpreted, but you can't challenge the fact that there have been horrendous mutations among girls born just after the eclipse. And why not? I've heard quite the opposite. I was present when they did an autopsy on one of them, said the wizard. Geralt, what we found inside the skull and marrow could not be described. Some sort of red sponge. The internal organs were all mixed up. Some were missing completely. Everything was covered in moving cilia, bluish pink shreds. The heart was 6-chambered, with 2 chambers practically atrophied. What do you say to that? I've seen people with eagle's talons instead of hands. People with a wolf's fangs. People with additional joints, additional organs, and additional senses, all of which were the effects of your messing about with magic. You've seen all sorts of mutations, you say. The magician raised his head. And how many of them have you slaughtered for money, in keeping with your witcher's calling? Well, because one can have a wolf's fangs and go no further than bearing them at the trollops and taverns, or one can have a wolf's nature, too, and attack children, and that's just how it was with the girls who were born after the eclipse. Their outright insane tendency to cruelty, aggression, sudden outburst of anger, and an unbridled temperament were noted. You can say that about any woman, sneered Geralt. What are you driveling on about? You're asking me how many mutants I've killed? Why aren't you interested in how many I've extricated? Another new word. How many I've extricated from spells, freed from curses? I, a witcher despised by you, and what have you done, you mighty magicians? A higher magic was used, ours and that of the priests in various temples. All attempts ended in the girls' deaths. That speaks badly of you, not the girls. And so we've now got the first corpses. I take it the only autopsies were done on them? No, don't look at me like that. You know very well that there were more corpses too. It was initially decided to eliminate all of them. We got rid of a few. Autopsies were done on all of them. One of them was even vivisectioned. And you sons of bitches have the nerve to criticize witchers. Oh, Stregobor, the day will come when people will learn and get the better of you. I don't think a day like that will come soon, said the wizard, caustically. Don't forget that we were acting in the people's defense. The mutant girls would have drowned entire countries in blood. So say, you magicians, turning your noses up so high and mighty with your auras of infallibility. While we're on the subject, surely you're not going to tell me that in your hunt for these so-called mutants, you haven't once made a mistake? All right, said Stregobor, after a long silence. I'll be honest, although for my sake I shouldn't. We didn't make a mistake, more than one. Picking them out was extremely difficult, and that's why we stopped. Getting rid of them and started isolating them instead. Your famous towers, snorted the Witcher. Our towers, but that was another mistake. We underestimated them. Many escaped. Then some mad fashion to free imprisoned beauties took hold of the princes, especially the younger ones, who didn't have much to do and still less to lose. Most of them, fortunately, twisted their necks. As far as I know, those imprisoned in the towers died quickly. It's been said you must have helped them somewhat. That's a lie. But it is true that they quickly fell into apathy, refused to eat. What is interesting is that shortly before they died, they show signs of the gift of clairvoyance, further proof of mutation. Your proofs are becoming ever less convincing. Do you have any more? I do. Sylvana, the Lady of Neruk, who we never managed to get close to because she gained power so quickly. Terrible things are happening in Neruk now. Fialka, Evermir's daughter, escaped her tower using a homemade rope and is now terrorizing North Velhad. Bernica of Talgar was freed by an idiot prince. Now he's sitting in a dungeon, blinded. And the most common feature of the Talgar landscape is a set of gallows. There are other examples, too. Of course there are, said the Witcher. In Yamarluk, for instance, old man Abrid reigns. He's got scrofula. Not a single tooth in his head. Was probably born some 100 years before this eclipse. And can't fall asleep unless someone's being tortured to death in his presence. He's wiped out all his relatives and emptied half of the country in crazy, how did you put it, attacks of anger. There are also traces of rampant temperament. Apparently, he was nicknamed Obrad Jack Up the Skirt in his youth. Oh, Stregobor. It would be great if the cruelty of rulers could be explained away by mutations or curses. Listen, Geralt, no. You won't win me over with your reasons, nor convince me that Altabad wasn't a murdering madman. So let's get back to the monster threatening you. You'd better understand that, after the introduction you've given me, I don't like this story. But I'll hear you out. Without interrupting with spiteful comments, that I can't promise. Oh well. Stregobor slipped his hands into the sleeves of his robe. Then it'll only take longer. Well, the story begins in Creighton, a small principality in the north. The wife of Fredefalk, the Prince of Creighton, was Aridea, that's better, was Aridea, a wise, educated woman. She had many exceptional adepts of the magical arts in her family, and through inheritance, no doubt, she came into possession of a rare and powerful artifact. One of Elenia's mirrors. They're chiefly used by prophets and oracles because they predict the future accurately, albeit intricately. Aridea quite often turned to the mirror. With the usual question, I take it, interrupted Geralt. Who is the fairest of them all? I know. All Neolania's mirrors are either polite or broken. You're wrong. Aridea was more interested in her country's fates, and the mirror answered her questions by predicting a horrible death for her and for a great number of others by the hand or fault of Fredefalk's daughter from his first marriage. Aridea ensured this news reached the council, and the council sent me to Creighton. I don't have to add that Fredefalk's firstborn daughter was born shortly after the eclipse. I was quite discreet for a little while. She managed to torture a canary and 2 puppies during that time, and also gouged out a servant's eye with the handle of a comb. I carried out a few tests using curses, and most of them confirmed that the little one was a mutant. I went to Aridea with the news because Fredefalk's daughter meant the world to him. Aridea, as I said, wasn't stupid. Of course, Geralt interrupted again. And no doubt, she wasn't head over heels in love with her stepdaughter. She preferred her own children to inherit the throne. I can guess what followed. How come nobody throttled her? And you, 2. While they were at it, Stregobor sighed, raised his eyes to heaven, where the rainbow was still shimmering colorfully and picturesquely. I wanted to isolate her, but Eridea decided otherwise. She sent the little one out into the forest with a hired thug, a trapper. We found him later in the undergrowth, without any trousers, so it wasn't hard to recreate the turn of events. She had dug a brooch pin into his brain, through his ear, no doubt while his attention was on to entirely different matters. If you think I feel sorry for him, muttered Geralt, then you're wrong. We organized a manhunt, continued Stregobor, but all traces of the little one had disappeared. I had to leave Kraden in a hurry, because Fredefolk was beginning to suspect something. Then, 4 years later, I received news from Eridea. She'd tracked down the little one, who was living in Mayacom with 7 gnomes whom she managed to convince it was more profitable to rob merchants on the road than to pollute their lungs with dust from the mines. She was known as Shrike, because she liked to impale the people she caught on a sharp pole while they were still alive. Several times Eridea hired assassins, but none of them returned. Well, then it became hard to find anyone to try. Shrike had already become quite famous. She'd learnt to use a sword so well, there was hardly a man who could defy her. I was summoned, and arrived in Kraden secretly, only to learn that someone had poisoned Eridea. It was generally believed that it was the work of Fredefolk, who had found himself a younger, more robust mistress, and I think it was Renfrey. Renfrey? That's what I think she was called. I said she'd poisoned Eridea. Shortly afterwards, Prince Fredefolk died in a strange hunting accident, and Eridea's eldest son disappeared without a word. It must have been the little one's doing, too. I say little, but she was 17 by then, and she was pretty well developed. Meanwhile, the wizard picked up after a moment's break. She and her gnomes had become the terror of the whole of Mayacom. Until, one day, they argued about something. I don't know what. Sharing about the loot, or whose turn it was to spend the night with her. Anyway, they slaughtered each other with knives. Only Shrike survived. Only her. And I was in the neighborhood at the time. We met face to face. She recognized me in a flash, and knew the part I'd played in Kraden. I tell you, Geralt, I had barely managed to utter a curse, and my hands were shaking like anything. When that wildcat flew at me with a sword, I turned her into a neat slab of mountain crystal, 6 ells by 9. When she fell into a lethargy, I threw the slab into the gnome's mine and brought the tunnels down on it. Shabby work, commented Geralt. That spell could have been reversed. Couldn't you have burnt her to cinders? You know so many nice spells after all. No, it's not my specialty. But you're right, I did make a hash of it. Some idiot prince found her, spent a fortune on a counter curse, reversed the spell, and triumphantly took her home to some out-of-the-way kingdom in the east. His father, an old brigand, proved to have more sense. He gave his son a hiding, and questioned Shrike about the treasures which she and the gnomes had seized, and which she'd hidden. His mistake was to allow his elder son to assist him when he had her stretched out, naked, on the executioner's bench. Somehow, the following day, that same eldest son, now an orphan bereft of siblings, was ruling the kingdom, and Shrike had taken over the office of the first favorite. Meaning she can't be ugly. That's a matter of taste. She wasn't a favorite for long. Up until the first coup d'etat at the palace, to give it a grand name, it was more like a barn. It soon became clear that she hadn't forgotten about me. She tried to assassinate me 3 times in Kovir. I decided not to risk a 4th attempt and wait her out in Pontar. Again, she found me. This time, I escaped to Angren, but she found me there too. I don't know how she does it. I cover my traces well. It must be a feature of her mutation. What stopped you from casting another spell to turn her into crystal? Scruples? No, I don't have any of those. She had become resistant to magic. That's impossible. It's not. It's enough to have the right artifact or aura, or this could also be associated with her mutation, which is progressing. I escaped from Angren and hid here, in Arksea. In Blaviken. I've lived in peace for a year, but she's tracked me down again. How do you know? Is she already in town? Yes. I saw her in the crystal ball. The wizard raised his wand. She's not alone. She's leading a gang, which shows that she's brewing something serious. Geralt, I don't have anywhere else to run. I don't know where I could hide. The fact that you've arrived here exactly at this time can't be a coincidence. It's fate. The Witcher raised his eyebrows. What's on your mind? Surely it's obvious. You were going to kill her. I'm not a hired thug, Stregobor. You're not a thug. Agreed. I kill monsters for money. Beasts, which endanger people. Horrors, conjured up by spells and sorceries cast by the likes of you. Not people. She's not human. She's exactly a monster. A mutant. A cursed mutant. You brought a Kikamora here. Shrike's worse than a Kikamora. A Kikamora kills because it's hungry, but Shrike does it for pleasure. Kill her, and I'll pay you whatever sum you ask. Within reason, of course. I've already told you, I consider the story about mutations and Lilith's curse to be nonsense. The girl has her reasons for settling her account with you. And I'm not going to get mixed up in it. Turn to the alderman, to the town guards. You're the town wizard. You're protected by municipal law. I spit on the law. The alderman and his help, exploded Stregobor. I don't need defense. I need you to kill her. Nobody's going to get into this tower. I'm completely safe here. But what's that to me? I don't intend to spend the rest of my days here, and Shrike's not going to give up while I'm alive. Am I to sit here, in this tower, and wait for death? They did. Do you know what, magician? You should have left that hunt for the girls to other, more powerful wizards. You should have foreseen the consequences. Please, Geralt. No, Stregobor. The sorcerer was silent. The unreal sun and its unreal sky hadn't moved towards the zenith, but the Witcher knew it was already dusk in Blaviken. He felt hungry. Geralt, said Stregobor, when we were listening to Eltibald, many of us had doubts, but we decided to accept the lesser evil. Now I ask you to make a similar choice. Evil is evil, Stregobor, said the Witcher seriously as he got up. Lesser, greater, middling, it's all the same. Proportions are negotiated, boundaries blurred. I'm not a pious hermit. I haven't done only good in my life. But if I'm to choose between one evil and another, then I prefer not to choose at all. Time for me to go. We'll see each other tomorrow. Maybe, said the wizard, if you get here in time. Need a sip? Part 3. The Golden Court, the country town's elegant inn, was crowded and noisy. The guests, locals, and visitors were mostly engaged in activities typical for their nation or profession. Serious merchants argued with dwarves over the price of goods and credit interest. Less serious merchants pinched the backsides of the girls carrying beer, cabbage, and beans. Local nitwits pretended to be well-informed. Harlots were trying to please those who had money while discouraging those who had none. Carters and fishermen drank as if there were no tomorrow. Some seamen were singing a song which celebrated the ocean waves, the courage of captains and the graces of mermaids, the latter graphically and in considerable detail. Exert your memory, friend, Caldeman said to the innkeeper, leaning across the counter in order to be heard over the din. 6 men and a wench, all dressed in black leather studded with silver in the Novigradian style. I saw them at the turnpike. Are they staying here? Or at the Tuna Fish? The innkeeper wrinkled his bulging forehead and wiped a tankard on his striped apron. Here, alderman, he finally said, they say they've come for the market, but they all carry swords, even the women, dressed, as you said, in black. Well, the alderman added, where are they now? I don't see them here. In the lesser alcove, they paid in gold. I'll go in alone, said Geralt. There's no point in making this an official affair in front of them all. At least for the time being, I'll bring her here. Maybe that's best, but be careful. I don't want any trouble. I'll be careful. The seamen's song, judging by the growing intensity of obscene words, was reaching its grand finale. Geralt drew aside the curtain, stiff and sticky with dirt, which hid the entrance to the alcove. 6 men were seated at the table. Shrike wasn't with them. What do you want? Yelled the man who noticed him first. He was balding, and his face was disfigured by a scar which ran across his left eyebrow, the bridge of his nose, and his right cheek. I want to see Shrike. 2 identical figures stood up. Identical, motionless faces and fair, disheveled, shoulder-length hair. Identical, tight-fitting black outfits glistening with silver ornaments. And with identical movements, the twins took identical swords from the bench. Keep calm, Veer. Sit down, Nemir, said the man with the scar, leaning his elbows on the table. Who do you say you want to see, brother? Who's Shrike? You know very well who I mean. Who's this, then? Asked a half-naked athlete, sweaty, girded crosswise with belts, and wearing spiked pads on his forearms. You know him, Norn? No, said the man with the scar. It's some albino, giggled a slim, dark-haired man sitting next to Norn. Delicate feathers, enormous black eyes, and pointed ears betrayed him to be a half-blood elf. Albino, mutant, freak in nature. And this sort of thing is allowed to enter pubs among decent people. I've seen him somewhere before, said a stocky, weather-beaten man with a plate. With plate? P-L-A-I-T. Don't know what that is. Measuring Geralt with an evil look in his narrowed eyes. Doesn't matter where you've seen him, Tavik, said Norn. Listen here. Sivril insulted you terribly a moment ago. Aren't you going to challenge him? It's such a boring evening. No, said the Witcher calmly. And me? If I pour this fish soup over your head, are you going to challenge me? Cackled the man sitting naked to the waist. Keep calm, 15, said Norn. He said no. That means no. For the time being. Well, brother, say what you have to say and clear out. You got one chance to clear out on your own. You don't take it, the attendees will carry you out. I don't have anything to say to you. I want to see Shrike. Renfrey. You hear that, boys? Norn looked around at his companions. He wants to see Renfrey. And may I know why? No. Norn raised his head and looked at the twins as they took a step forward, the silver clasps on their thigh boots jangling. I know, the man in the plate said suddenly. I know where I've seen him now. What's that you're mumbling, Tavik? In front of the alderman's house. He brought some sort of dragon in to trade, a cross between a spider and a crocodile. People were saying he's a witcher. And what's a witcher? 15 asked. Eh? Sivril? A hired magician, said the half-elf. A conjurer, for a fistful of silver. I told you. A freak of nature, an insult to human and divine laws. They ought to be burned, the likes of them. We don't like magicians, screeched Tavik, not taking his narrow eyes off Geralt. It seems to me, Sivril, that we're going to have more work in this hole than we thought. There's more than one of them here, and everyone knows they stick together. Birds of a feather, the half-breed smiled meticulously. To think, the likes of you walk the earth. Who spawns you freaks? A bit more tolerance, if you please, said Geralt calmly. As I see, your mother must have wandered off through the forest alone, often enough to give you good reason to wonder where you come from yourself. Possibly, answered the half-elf, the smile not leaving his face. But at least I knew my mother. You witchers can't say that much about yourselves. Geralt grew a little pale and tightened his lips. Noorn, noticing it, laughed out loud. Well, brother, you can't let an insult like that go by. That thing you have on your back looks like a sword. So, are you going outside with Severil? The evening's so boring. The Witcher didn't react. Shitty coward, snorted Tavik. What did he say about Severil's mother? Norn continued, monotonously, resting his chin clasped in his hands. Something extremely nasty, as I understand it. That she was an easy lay or something. Hey, 15. Is it right to listen to some straggler insulting a companion's mother? A mother, you son of a bitch, is sacred. 15 got up willingly, undid his sword, and threw it on the table. He stuck his chest out, adjusted the pads with silver studs on his shoulders, spat, and took a step forward. If you got any doubts, said Norn, then 15 is challenging you to a fist fight. Told you they'd carry you out of here. Make room. 15 moved closer and raised his fist. Geralt put his hand on the hilt of the sword. Careful, he said. One more step and you'll be looking for your hand on the floor. Noorn and Tavik leapt up, grabbing their swords. The silent twins drew theirs with identical movements. 15 stepped back. Only Severil didn't move. What's going on here, damn it? Can't I leave you alone for a minute? Geralt turned round very slowly and looked into the eyes, the color of the sea. She was almost as tall as him. She wore her straw-colored hair, unevenly cut, just below the ears. She stood with one hand on the door, wearing a tight, velvet jacket clasped with a decorated belt. Her skirt was uneven, asymmetrical, reaching down to her calf on the left side, and on the right, revealing a strong thigh above a boot made of elk's leather. On her left side, she carried a sword. On her right, a dagger, with a huge ruby set in its pommel. Lost your voices? He's a witcher, mumbled Noorn. So what? He wanted to talk to you. So what? He's a sorcerer, 15 roared. We don't like sorcerers, snarled Tavik. Take it easy, boys, said the girl. He wants to talk to me. That's no crime. You carry on having a good time, and no trouble. Tomorrow's market day. Surely you don't want your pranks to disrupt the market, such an important event in the life of this pleasant town? A quiet, nasty giggle reverberated in the silence which fell. Severil, still sprawled out carelessly on the bench, was laughing. Come on, Renfrey, chuckled the half-blood. Important event? Shut up, Severil. Immediately. Severil stopped laughing. Immediately. Geralt wasn't surprised. There was something very strange in Renfrey's voice. Something associated with the red in reflection of fire on blades, the wailing of people being murdered, the whinnying of horses, and the smell of blood. Others must also have had similar associations. Even Tavik's weather-beaten face grew pale. Well, Whitehair, Renfrey broke the silence. Let's go into the larger room. Let's join the alderman you came with. He wants to talk to me too, no doubt. At the sight of them, Calderman, who was waiting at the counter, broke off his quiet conversation with the innkeeper, straightened himself, and folded his arms across his chest. Listen, young lady, he said severely, not wasting time with banal niceties. I know from this Witcher of Rivia here what brings you to Blaviken. Apparently you bear a grudge against our wizard. Maybe. What of it? Asked Renfrey, quietly, in an equally brusque tone. Only that there are tribunals to deal with grudges like that. He who wants to revenge a grudge using steel, here in Arksea, is considered a common bandit. And also that either you get out of Blaviken early in the morning with your black companions, or I throw you into prison. How do you say it, Geralt? Preventive, preventively, preventively, only. Exactly. Understood, young lady? Renfrey reached into the purse on her belt, pulled out a parchment which had been folded several times. Read this, Alderman, if you're literate, and don't call me young lady. Alderman took the parchment, spent a good time reading it, then, without a word, gave it to Geralt. Welcome in, Calandria. To my regents, vassals, and freeman subjects, the Witcher read out loud. To all and sundry, I proclaim that Renfrey, the Princess of Creighton, remains in our service and is well seen by us. Whosoever dares maltreat her will incur our wrath. Ottoin King... Maltreat is not spelled like that, but the seal appears authentic. Because it is authentic, said Renfrey, snatching the parchment from him. It was affixed by Audion, your merciful lord. That's why I don't advise you maltreat me. Irrespective of how you spell it, the consequences for you would be lamentable. You are not, honorable alderman, going to put me in prison, or call me young lady. I haven't infringed any law, for the time being. If you infringe even by an inch, Calderman looked as if he wanted to spit. I'll throw you in the dungeon together with this piece of paper. I swear on all the gods, young lady. Come on, Geralt. With you, Witcher, Renfrey touched Geralt's shoulder. I'd still like a word. Don't be late for supper, the alderman threw over his shoulder, or Labouche will be furious. I won't. Geralt leaned against the counter, fiddling with the wolf's head medallion hanging around his neck. He looked into the girl's blue-green eyes. I've heard of you, she said. You're Geralt, the white-haired witcher from Rivia. Is Stregobor your friend? No. That makes things easier. Not much. Don't expect me to look on peacefully. Renfrey's eyes narrowed. Stregobor dies tomorrow, she said quietly, brushing the unevenly cut hair off her forehead. It would be the lesser evil if he died alone. If he did, yes. But in fact, before Stregobor dies, several other people will die too. I don't see any other possibility. Several, Witcher is putting it mildly. You don't need more than words to frighten me, Shrike. You need more than words to frighten me, Shrike. Don't call me Shrike. I don't like it. The point is, I see other possibilities. It would be worth talking it over. But Labouche is waiting. Is she pretty, this Labouche? Is that all you had to say to me? No, but you should go. Labouche is waiting. Part 4. There was someone in his little attic room. Geralt knew it before he even reached the door. Sensing it through the barely perceptible vibration of his medallion, he blew out the oil lamp which had lit his path up the stairs, pulled the dagger out from his boot, slipped it into the back of his belt, and pressed the door handle. The room was dark, but not for a witcher. He was deliberately slow in crossing the threshold. He closed the door behind him carefully. The next second, he dived at the person sitting on his bed, crushed them into the linen, forced his forearm under their chin, and reached for his dagger. He didn't pull it out. Something wasn't right. Not a bad start, she said in a muffled voice, lying motionless beneath him. I expected something like this, but I didn't think we'd both be in bed so quickly. Take your hand from my throat, please. It's you. It's me. Now there are two possibilities. The first, you get off me and we talk. The second, we stay in this position, in which case I'd like to take my boots off at least. The Witcher released the girl, who sighed, sat up, and adjusted her hair and skirt. Light the candle, she said. I can't see in the dark, unlike you, and I'd like to see who I'm talking to. She approached the table, tall, slim, agile, and sat down, stretching her long legs in their high boots. She wasn't carrying any visible weapons. Have you gotten anything to drink here? No. Then, it's a good thing I brought something, she laughed, placing a traveling wineskin and 2 leather tumblers on the table. It's nearly midnight, said Geralt coldly. Shall we come to the point? In a minute. Here, have a drink. Here's to you, Geralt. Likewise, Shrike. My name's Renfrey, damn it. She raised her head. I will permit you to omit my royal title, but stop calling me Shrike. Be quiet or you'll wake up the whole house. Am I finally going to learn why you crept in here through the window? You're slow-witted, Witcher. I want to save Blaviken from slaughter. I crawled over the rooftops like a she-cat in March in order to talk to you about it. Appreciate it. I do, said Geralt. Except that I don't know what talk can achieve. The situation's clear. Stregobor is in his tower, and you'd have to lay siege to it in order to get to him. And if you do that, your letter of safe conduct won't help you. Otwin won't defend you if you openly break the law. The aldermen, guards, whole of Blaviken will stand against you. The whole of Blaviken would regret standing up to me, Renfrey smiled, revealing a predator's white teeth. Did you take a look at my boys? They know their trade, I assure you. Can you imagine what would happen in a fight between them and those dimwit guards who keep tripping over their own halberds? Do you imagine I would stand by and watch a fight like that? I'm staying at the alderman's, as you can see. If the need arises, I should stand at his side. I have no doubt. Renfrey grew serious. That you will. But you'll probably be alone, as the rest will cower in the cellars. No warrior in the world could match 7 swordsmen. So, Whitehair, let's stop threatening each other. As I said, slaughter and bloodshed can be avoided. There are 2 people who can prevent it. I'm all ears. One, said Renfrey, is Stregobor himself. He leaves his tower voluntarily. I take him to a deserted spot. Blaviken sinks back into blissful apathy and forgets the whole affair. Stregobor may seem crazy. He's not that crazy. Who knows, Witcher? Who knows? Some arguments can't be denied. Like the Treedom ultimatum, I plan to present it to the sorcerer. What is it? This ultimatum? That's my sweet secret. As you wish, but I doubt it'll be effective. Stregobor's teeth chatter when he speaks of you. An ultimatum which would persuade him to voluntarily surrender himself into your beautiful hands would have to be pretty good. So who's the other person? Let me guess. I wonder how sharp you are, Whitehair. It's you, Renfrey. You'll reveal a truly princely, what am I saying? Royal magnanimity and renounce your revenge. Have I guessed? Renfrey threw back her head and laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. Then she grew silent and fixed her shining eyes on the Witcher. Geralt, she said, I used to be a princess. I had everything I could dream of. Servants at my beck and call, dresses, shoes, cambric knickers, jewels and trinkets, ponies, goldfish in a pond, dolls in a doll's house bigger than this room. That was my life, until Stregobor and that whore Eridea ordered the huntsman to butcher me in the forest and bring back my heart and liver. Lovely, don't you think? No. I'm pleased you evaded the huntsman, Renfrey. Like shit I did. He took pity on me and let me go, after the son of a bitch raped me and robbed me. Geralt, fiddling with his medallion, looked her straight in the eyes. She didn't lower hers. That was the end of the princess, she continued. The dress grew torn, the cambric grew grubby, and then there was dirt, hunger, stench, stink, and abuse. Selling myself to any old bum for a bowl of soup or a roof over my head. Do you know what my hair was like? Silk. And it reached a good foot below my hips. I had it cut right to the scalp with sheep shears when I caught lice. It's never grown back properly. She was silent for a moment. idly brushing the uneven strands of hair from her forehead. I stole rather than starved to death. I killed to avoid being killed myself. I was locked in prisons which stank of urine, never knowing if they would hang me in the morning, or just flog me and release me. And through it all, my stepmother and your sorcerer were hard on my heels with their poisons and assassins and spells, and you want me to reveal my magnanimity, to forgive him royally. I'll tear his head off royally first. Eridea and Stregobor tried to poison you. With an apple, seasoned with nightshade. I was saved by a gnome, and an emetic I thought would turn my insides out. But I survived. Was that one of the 7 gnomes? Renfrey, pouring wine, froze, holding the wineskin over the tumbler. Ah, she said. You do know a lot about me. Yes? Do you have something against gnomes? Or humanoids? They were better to me than most people. Not that it's your business. Stregobor and Eridea hunted me. Oh, I thought this was going to be Geralt. Stregobor and Eridea hunted me like a wild animal as long as they could, until I became the hunter. Eridea died in her own bed. She was lucky I didn't get to her earlier. I had a special plan for her. And now I've got one for the sorcerer. Do you think he deserves to die? I'm no judge. I'm a witcher. You are? I said that there were 2 people who could prevent bloodshed in Blaviken. The second is you. The sorcerer will let you into the tower. You could kill him. Renfrey, said Geralt calmly. Did you fall from the roof onto your head on the way into my room? Are you a witcher? Or aren't you, damn it? They say you killed a Kikamora and brought it here on a donkey to get a price for it. Stregobor is worse than a Kikamora. It's just a mindless beast which kills because that's how the gods made it. Stregobor is a brute, a true monster. Bring him to me on a donkey and I won't begrudge you any sum you care to mention. I'm not a hired thug, Shrike. You're not, she agreed with a smile. She leaned back on the stool and crossed her legs on the table without the slightest effort to cover her thighs with her skirt. You're a witcher, a defender of people from evil, and evil is the steel and fire with which will cause devastation here if we fight each other. Don't you think I'm proposing a lesser evil, a better solution, even for that son of a bitch Stregobor? You can kill him, mercifully, with one thrust. He'll die without knowing it, and I guarantee him quite the reverse. Geralt remained silent. Renfrey stretched, raising her arms. I understand your hesitation, she said, but I need an answer. Now. Do you know why Stregobor and the king's wife wanted to kill you? Renfrey straightened sharply, took her legs off the table. It's obvious, she snarled. I am heir to the throne. Eridea's children were born out of wedlock and don't have any rights. No. Renfrey lowered her head, but only for a moment. Her eyes flashed. Fine. I'm supposed to be cursed, contaminated in my mother's womb. I'm supposed to be, yes, a monster. And are you? For a fleeting moment, she looked helpless, shattered, and very sad. I don't know, Geralt, she whispered, and then her features hardened again. Because how am I to know, damn it? When I cut my finger, I bleed. I bleed every month, too. I get bellyache when I overeat, and I hangover when I get drunk. When I'm happy, I sing, and I swear when I'm sad. When I hate someone, I kill them, and when... But enough of this. Your answer, Witcher. My answer is no. You remember what I said? She asked after a moment's silence. There are offers you can't refuse. The consequences are so terrible, and this is one of them. Think it over. I have thought carefully, and my suggestion was just as serious. Renfrey was silent for some time, fiddling with a string of pearls wound 3 times around her shapely neck before falling teasingly between her breasts, their curves just visible through the slit of her jacket. Geralt, she said, did Stregobor ask you to kill me? Yes. He believed it was the lesser evil. Can I believe you refused him, as you have me? You can. Why? Because I don't believe in a lesser evil. Renfrey smiled faintly, an ugly grimace in the yellow candlelight. You don't believe in it, you say? Well, you're right, in a way. Only evil and greater evil exist, and beyond them, in the shadows, lurks true evil. True evil, Geralt, is something you could barely imagine. Even if you believe, nothing can still surprise you, and sometimes true evil seizes you by the throat and demands that you choose between it and another, slightly lesser evil. What's your goal here, Renfrey? Nothing. I've had a bit to drink, and I'm philosophizing. I'm looking for general truths, and I found one. Lesser evils exist, but we can't choose them. Only true evil can force us to such a choice, whether we like it or not. Maybe I've not had enough to drink, the Witcher smiled sourly. And in the meantime, midnight's passed, the way it does. Let's speak plainly. You're not going to kill Stregobor and Blaviken, because I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let it come to a slaughter here. So, for the second time, renounce your revenge. Prove to him, to everyone, that you're not an inhuman and bloodthirsty monster. Prove he has done you great harm through his mistake. For a moment, Renfrey watched the Witcher's medallion spinning as he twisted the chain. And if I tell you, Witcher, that I can neither forgive Stregobor nor renounce my revenge, then I admit that he is right. Is that it? I'd be proving that I am a monster cursed by the gods. You know, when I was still new to this life, a freeman took me in. He took a fancy to me, even though I found him repellent. So every time he wanted to fuck me, he had to beat me so hard I could barely move, even the following day. One morning, I rose while it was still dark and slashed his throat with a scythe. I wasn't yet as skilled as I am now, and a knife seemed too small. And as I listened to him gurgle and choke, watched him kicking and flailing, I felt the marks left by his feet and fists fade, and I felt, oh, so great, that I left him, whistling, sprightly, feeling so joyful, so happy. And it's the same each time. If it wasn't, who'd waste time on revenge? Renfrey, said Geralt, whatever your motives, you're not going to leave here joyful and happy. But you'll leave here alive, early tomorrow morning, as the alderman ordered. You're not going to kill Stregobor and Blaviken. Renfrey's eyes glistened in the candlelight, reflecting the flame. The pearls glowed in the slit of her jacket. The wolf medallion spinning round on its chain sparkled. I pity you, she said slowly, gazing at the medallion. You claim a lesser evil doesn't exist. You're standing on a flagstone, running with blood, alone and so very lonely, because you can't choose. But you had to. And you'll never know. You'll never be sure if you were right. And your reward will be a stoning and a bad word. I pity you. And you? Asked the Witcher quietly, almost in a whisper. I can't choose either. What are you? I am what I am. Where are you? I'm cold. Renfrey. Geralt squeezed the medallion tightly in his hand. She tossed her head as if waking up and blinked several times, surprised. For a brief moment, she looked frightened. You've won, she said sharply. You win, Witcher, Tomorrow morning I'll leave Blaviken and never return to this rotten town. Never. Now pass me the wineskin. Her usual derisive smile returned as she put her empty tumbler back on the table. Geralt, I'm here. That bloody roof is steep. I'd prefer to leave at dawn than fall and hurt myself in the dark. I'm a princess, and my body's delicate. I can feel the pee under a mattress, as long as it's not well stuffed with straw, obviously. How about it? Renfrey, Geralt smiled despite himself. Is that really befitting of a princess? What do you know about princesses, damn it? I've lived as one, and the joy of it is being able to do what you like. Do I have to tell you straight out what I want? Geralt, still smiling, did not reply. I can't believe you don't find me attractive, Renfrey grimaced. Are you afraid you'll meet the Freeman's sticky fate? Eh, Whitehair? I haven't got anything sharp on me. Have a look for yourself. She put her legs on his knees. Pull my boots off. A high boot is the best place to hide a knife. Barefoot, she got up, tore at the buckle of her belt. I'm not hiding anything here, either. Or here, as you can see. Put that bloody candle out. Outside, in the darkness, a cat yowled. Renfrey. What? Is this cambric? Of course it is, damn it. Am I a princess or not? Gotta take a sip. Part 5. Daddy, Miracle nagged monotonously. When are we going to the market? To the market, Daddy. Quiet, Miracle grunted Caldeman, wiping his plate with bread. So what are you saying, Geralt? They're leaving? Yes. I never thought it would end so peacefully. They had me by the throat with that letter from Audion. I put on a brave face, but to tell you the truth, I couldn't do a thing to 'em. Even if they openly broke the law. Started a fight? Even if they did. Audion's a very touchy king. He sends people to the scaffold on a whim. I've got a wife, a daughter, and I'm happy with my office. I don't have to worry where the bacon will come from tomorrow. It's good news that they're leaving. But how? And why did it happen? Daddy, I want to go to the market. Labouche, take Miracle away. Geralt, I asked Centurion, the Golden Court's innkeeper, about the Novigradian company. They're quite a gang. Some of them were recognized. Yes. The one with the gash across his face is Norn, Abergard's old adjutant from the so-called Free Angren Company. You've heard of them? You'll have heard of them. That Hulk they call 15 was one of theirs too. And I don't think that nickname comes from 15 good deeds. The half-elf is Sevril, a brigand and professional murderer. Apparently he had something to do with the massacre at Treatham. Where? Treatham. Didn't you hear of it? Everyone was talking about it 3 years ago. The Baron of Treatham was holding some brigands in the dungeons. Their comrades, one of whom was that half-blood Sevril, seized a river ferry full of pilgrims during the Feast of Knees. They demanded the Baron set those others free. The Baron refused, so they began murdering pilgrims, one after another. By the time the Baron released his prisoners, they'd thrown a dozen pilgrims overboard to drift with the current. And following the deaths, the Baron was in danger of exile, or even execution. Some blamed him for waiting so long to give in. And others claimed he'd committed a great evil in releasing the men, in setting a precedent or something. The gang should have been shot from the banks, together with the hostages, or attacked on the boats. He shouldn't have given an inch. At the tribunal, the Baron argued he'd had no choice. He'd chosen the lesser evil to save more than 25 people, women and children, on the ferry. The Treatham ultimatum, whispered the Witcher. Renfrey. What? Called him in. The marketplace. What? She's deceived us. They're not leaving. They'll force Stregobor out of his tower, as they forced the Baron of Treatham's hand. Or they'll force me to... They're going to start murdering people at the market. It's a real trap. By all the gods. Where are you going? Sit down. Marilka, terrified by the shouting, huddled, keening in the corner of the kitchen. I told you, the Boosh shouted, pointing at the Witcher. I said he only brings trouble. Silence, woman. Geralt, sit down. We have to stop them right now, before people go to the market, and call the guards. As the gang leaves the inn, seize them and hold them. Be reasonable. We can't touch a hair on their heads. If they've done nothing wrong, they'll defend themselves, and there will be bloodshed. They're professionals. They'll slaughter my people, and it'll be my head if word gets to Audion. I'll gather the guards, go to the market, and keep an eye on them there. That won't achieve anything, Caldeman. If the crowd's already in the square, you can't prevent panic and slaughter. Renfrey has to be stopped right now, while the marketplace is empty. It's illegal. I can't permit it. It's only rumor that the half-elf was at Treatham. You could be wrong, and Audion would flay me alive. We have to take the lesser evil. Geralt, I forbid it. As alderman, I forbid it. Leave your sword. Stop. Miracle was screaming, her hands pressed over her mouth. Part 6. Shading his eyes with his hand, Several watched the sun emerge from beyond the trees. The marketplace was coming to life. Wagons and carts rumbled past, and the first vendors were already filling their stalls. A hammer was banging, a cock crowing, and seagulls screeched loudly overhead. Looks like a lovely day, 15 said pensively. Several looked at him askance and didn't say anything. The horse is all right, Tavik? Asked Snowhorn, pulling on his gloves. Saddled and ready, but there's still not many of them in the marketplace. There'll be more. We should eat. Later. Dead right. You'll have time later. And an appetite. Look, said 15 suddenly. The Witcher was approaching from the main street, walking between stalls, coming straight towards them. Renfrey was right, Several said. Give me the crossbow, Norn. He hunched over and, holding the strap down with his foot, pulled the string back. He placed the bolt carefully in the groove as the Witcher continued to approach. Several raised the crossbow. Not one step closer, Witcher. Geralt stopped about 40 paces from the group. Where's Renfrey? The half-blood's pretty face, contorted. At the tower. She's making the sorcerer an offer he can't refuse. But she knew you would come. She left a message for you. Speak. I am what I am. Choose. Either me or a lesser. You're supposed to know what it means. The Witcher nodded, raised his hand above his right shoulder, and drew his sword. The blade traced a glistening arc above his head. Walking slowly, he made his way towards the group. Several laughed, nastily, ominously. Renfrey said this would happen, Witcher, and left us something special to give you. Right between the eyes. The Witcher kept walking, and the half-elf raised the crossbow to his cheek. It grew very quiet. The bowstring hummed, the Witcher sword flashed, and the bolt flew upwards with a metallic whine, spinning in the air until it clattered against the roof and rumbled into the gutter. He deflected it, groaned 15. Deflected it in flight. As one, ordered Several. Blades hissed as they were drawn from sheaths. The groups pressed shoulder to shoulder, bristling with blades. The Witcher came on faster. His fluid walk became a run, not straight at the group, quivering with swords, but circling it in a tightening spiral. As Geralt circled the group, Tavik's nerve failed. He rushed the Witcher, the twins following him. Don't disperse! Several roared, shaking his head and losing sight of the Witcher. He swore and jumped aside, seeing the group fall apart, scattering around the market stalls. Tavik went first. He was chasing the Witcher when he saw Geralt running in the opposite direction, towards him. He skidded, trying to stop, but the Witcher shot past before he could raise his sword. Tavik felt a hard blow just above his hip, fell to his knees, and when he saw his hip, he started screaming. The twins simultaneously attacked the black, blurred shape rushing towards them, misstimed their attack, and collided with each other as Geralt slashed Vir across the chest and Nimir in the temple. leaving one twin to stagger head down into a vegetable stall and the other to spin in place and fall limply into the gutter. The marketplace boiled with vendors running away, stalls clattering to the ground, and screams rising in the dusty air. Tavik tried to stumble to his trembling legs and fell painfully to the ground. "From the left, 15!" Nohorn roared, running in a semicircle to approach the Witcher from behind. 15 spun, but not quickly enough. He bore a thrust through the stomach, prepared to strike, and was struck again in the neck, just below his ear. He took 4 unsteady steps and collapsed into a fish cart, which rolled away beneath him. Sliding over the slippery cargo, 15 fell onto the flagstones, silver with scales. Several and Nohorn struck simultaneously from both sides. The elf with a high sweeping cut, Nohorn from a kneeling position, low and flat. The Witcher caught both, 2 metallic clangs merging into one. Several leapt aside and tripped, catching himself against a stall as Nohorn warded off a blow so powerful it threw him backwards to his knees. Leaping up, he parried too slowly, taking a gash in the face parallel to his old scar. Several bounced off the stall, jumping over Nohorn as he fell, missed the Witcher, and jumped away. The thrust was so sharp, so precise, he didn't feel it. His legs only gave way when he tried to attack again. The sword fell from his hand, the tendon severed above the elbow. Several fell to his knees and shook his head, trying and failing to rise. His head dropped, and among the shattered stalls and market wares, the scattered fish and cabbages, his body stilled in the center of a growing red puddle. Renfrey entered the marketplace. She approached slowly, with a soft, feline step, avoiding the carts and stalls, the crowd in the streets and by the houses, with which had been humming like a hornet's nest through silence. Geralt stood motionless, his sword in his lowered hand. Renfrey came to within 10 paces and stopped, close enough to see that, under her jacket, she wore a short coat of chainmail, barely covering her hips. "You've made your choice," she said slowly. "Are you sure it's the right one?" "This won't be another Treatum," Geralt said with an effort. "It wouldn't have been. Stregobor laughed in my face. He said I could butcher Blaviken and the neighboring villages, and he wouldn't leave his tower. And he won't let anyone in, not even you. Why are you looking at me like that? Yes, I deceived you. I'll deceive anyone if I have to. So why should you be special?" "Get out of here, Renfrey." She laughed. "No, Geralt." She drew her sword quickly and nimbly. "Renfrey?" "No. You made a choice, and now it's my turn." With one sharp move, she tore the skirt from her hips and spun it in the air, wrapping the material around her forearm. Geralt retreated and raised his hand, arranging his fingers in the sign. Renfrey laughed hoarsely. "It doesn't affect me. Only the sword will." "Renfrey," he repeated. "Go. If we cross blades, I won't be able." "I know," she said. "But I can't do anything else. I just can't. We are what we are, you and I." She moved towards him with a light, swaying step, her sword glinting in her right hand, her skirt dragging along the ground from her left. She leapt. The skirt fluttered in the air, and, veiled in its attacks, the sword flashed in a short, sparing cut. Geralt jumped away. The cloth didn't even brush him, and Renfrey's blade slid over his diagonal parry. He attacked instinctively, spinning their blades, trying to knock her weapon aside. It was a mistake. She deflected his blade and slashed, aiming for his face. He barely parried and pirouetted away, dodging her dancing blade and jumping aside again. She fell on him, threw the skirt into his eyes, and slashed flatly, from short range, spinning. Spinning with her, he avoided the blow. She knew the trick and turned with him, their bodies so close he could feel the touch of her breath as she ran the edge across his chest. He felt a twinge of pain, ignored it. He turned again, in the opposite direction, deflected the blade flying towards his temple, made a swift feint, and attacked. Renfrey sprang away, as if to strike from above as Geralt lunged and swiftly slashed her exposed thigh and groin from below with the very tip of his sword. She didn't cry out. Falling to her side, she dropped her sword and clutched her thigh. Blood poured through her fingers and a bright stream over her decorated belt, elk leather boots, and onto the dirty flagstones. The clamor of the swaying crowd, crammed in the streets, grew as they saw blood. Geralt put up his sword. "Don't go," she moaned, curling up into a ball. He didn't reply. "I'm cold." He said nothing. Renfrey moaned again, curling up tighter as her blood flowed under the cracks between the stones. "Geralt, hold me." The Witcher remained silent. She turned her head, resting her cheek on the flagstones, and was still. A fine dagger, hidden beneath her body until now, slipped from her numb fingers. After a long moment, the Witcher raised his head, hearing Stregobor's staff tapping against the flagstones. The wizard was approaching quickly, avoiding the corpses. "What slaughter!" he panted. "I saw it, Geralt. I saw it all in my crystal ball." He came closer, bent over in his trailing black robe, supported by his staff. He looked old. "It's incredible." He shook his head. "Shrike's dead." Geralt did not reply. "Well, Geralt," the wizard straightened himself. "Fetch a cart, and we'll take her to the tower for an autopsy." He looked at the Witcher, and, not getting any answer, leant over the body. Someone the Witcher didn't know found the hilt of his sword, drew it. "Touch a single hair of her head," said the person the Witcher didn't know. "Touch her head and it's yours or go flying to the flagstones." "Have you gone mad? You're wounded, in shock. An autopsy's the only way we confirm—" "Don't touch her!" Stregobor, seeing the raised blade, jumped aside and waved his staff. "All right," he shouted. "As you wish. But you'll never know. You'll never be sure. Never. Do you hear, Witcher? Be gone." "As you wish." The wizard turned away, his staff hitting the flagstones. "I'm returning to Kovir. I'm not staying in this hole another day. Come with me rather than rot here. These people don't know anything. They've only seen you killing. And you kill nastily, Geralt. Well, are you coming?" Geralt didn't reply. He was looking at him. He put his sword away. Stregobor shrugged and walked away, his staff tapping rhythmically against the ground. A stone came flying from the crowd and clattered against the flagstones. A second followed, whizzing past just above Geralt's shoulder. The Witcher, holding himself straight, raised both hands and made a swift gesture with them. The crowd heaved. The stones came flying more thickly, but the sign protecting him behind an invisible oval shield pushed them aside. "Enough!" yelled Calderman. "Bloody hell, enough of that!" The crowd roared like a surge of breakers, but the stones stopped flying. The Witcher stood, motionless. The alderman approached him. "Is this," he said, with a broad gesture indicating the motionless bodies thrown across the square, "how your lesser evil looks? Is this what you believed necessary?" "Yes," replied Geralt, slowly, with an effort. "Is your wound serious?" "No." "In that case, get out of here." "Yes," said the Witcher. He stood a moment longer, avoiding the alderman's eyes. Then he turned away slowly. Very slowly. "Geralt." The Witcher looked around. "Don't come back," said Calderman. "Never come back." And we will leave off at the end of that chapter. Page 114. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I can't believe this book made me drop an F-bomb on stream. I can't believe it. Anyway. Anyway. Yes, that over here. Big stretch. Big stretch for sure.